Welcome back to the Marvel Podcast for gifted listeners. I hope you enjoyed learning about how Luke Cage got his powers and what he did with them. When the Netflix show came out, it was fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, which honestly, I don't put too much stock into Rotten Tomato just because they have just been very non-great lately. People did really enjoy the series, especially like when I looked at IMDb and just different user ratings. And then back in 1966, Black Panther entered the comic book world as the first mainstream black superhero. Now we know that in the 60s and 70s, the world wasn't all that accepting. This episode, we're going to kind of look into the receptions of these characters, and we're also going to look at some of Stan's soapboxes, which were sections of Marvel Comics where Stan Lee would talk about social issues that people would write in about. And kind of part of the reason that I made that in there is A, I think it fits the theme, and B, it was honestly kind of hard to find the feedback for these heroes because it was the 60s and 70s and just the information is just not there. It's hard to find because it was only published in print and never really digitized. There is going to be one short section where I do read a letter word for word, so just a fair warning for that. Like I said in the intro, Black Panther was the first mainstream black hero, and this is also the first time that readers saw a royal black hero. And this was a pathway for more diverse heroes, including Luke Cage, Storm, and most recently, Miles Morales. And funny enough, Black Panther wasn't called Black Panther originally. He was known as Coal Tiger when Jack Kirby first sketched him, and his suit had yellow trunks and yellow and black stripes on his torso. Eventually, through some resketches, some inking and coloring, the iconic Black Panther suit that we know today was created. Black Panther debuted in Fantastic Four number 52 as sort of an antagonist to Marvel's First Family. But, by the end of the issue, he did fight along with the Fantastic Four. Kind of what happens when new heroes are introduced. After he was introduced in the Fantastic Four, letters started to come in about Black Panther, and pretty much all of them were appraised for the new hero, or the new character, should I say, because he wasn't necessarily a hero just yet. The first letter I could find about what people thought about Black Panther, they said that he was a far superior character than your run-of-the-mill space villain like Galactus. And he is very much praised for this character, saying that this is so much different than what we're used to. Keep it up. Another letter was actually against Black Panther, but it wasn't for what you would see now on the internet of introducing a black character. It was mainly that they just thought he stunk. They just didn't think he was a good character. And this person was upset because he started off the letter being like, "Hey, Stan Jack, well, you guys finally did it. You did something for me to write into you." And that made him introducing Black Panther is what made him do that. He was upset that Black Panther was so powerful that he was able to bat around the Fantastic Four. And he thought that the concept of the Black Panther was just ridiculous. And even though he did say in the letter that the Fantastic Four did need to be beat around, he still didn't want it to be done in this way. Honestly, I bet you this person probably had a lot more negative things to say when he talked to his peers, but knew that if he actually wrote his true thoughts, Marvel probably would not publish his letter. The next letter is the one I prefaced in the intro. The writer of this letter was a woman, and these were her words when she's talking about Black Panther. She said, "I think the thing that looks so good is the way that you made Black Panther. The very first to create and introduce a Negro superhero who is as brilliant as he is handsome to team up with with your already fantastic heroes. So not only was this woman happy to see a black hero, she was also attracted to him, finding Black Panther attractive. And these first few letters were all feedback from Fantastic Four number 53, where he was first introduced. When I kind of did some more digging around, I found some feedback letters about Black Panther number 1, which was his solo book. And as you would expect, at least from an official source, the praise continued. But people begged for the writers to keep the essence of the character. They understood why Marvel didn't want to do such a controversial story as they did in Black Panther's first run, which was a story of Panther versus the Klan, but they didn't want them to change who the character was. They wanted to keep Black Panther as like a good character. Don't just strip him away and make him basic like some of the others. When I tried to find some of the similar stuff for Hero for Hire or Power Man, to be fair, I couldn't find any of the feedback letters like this. So I don't know if they didn't come in or Luke Cage just wasn't as popular, but just there weren't any of these letters in the bullpen. So I did kind of pivot to the Luke Cage TV show since it is more modern and the reviews are online. And also I've been having it play in the background while I've been doing the research for the past 2 episodes, just topical. That's what I've been doing as I've researched these, is I've kind of played the relative Marvel content in the background, just inspiration. And basically, it had about 7.5 on IMDb, and I looked at the 2 extremes of the scale. All the 1-star reviews were surprisingly not really complaining about the character himself. It was all the kind of classic complaints of, oh, this character is boring, the acting's bad, the sets are bad. You know, the Marvel complaints that are usual with the show. And then when I clicked it to the other end of 10 out of 10, people were just gushing over the show, saying how brilliant it was written, that the characters were all phenomenal, the acting was amazing, oh my god, we need a season 3, and so on and so forth. So hopefully we will see Luke Cage again in future MCU projects, now that the likes of Charlie Cox's Daredevil have started to make their way into the main MCU continuity and become canon. Because, like, there was a weird thing with the Netflix shows of, like, they referenced the MCU, but they weren't part of the MCU because of rights and stuff, which we will be talking about soon. But yeah, that's all I could really find about these heroes, and I wish I could find more about, like, their public reception. But like I said, just it's not really out there because any fanzines weren't really digitized, and like I said, people weren't really going to write into Marvel with their vitriol hate, or if they were, Marvel wasn't going to publish that in any official sources. So let's kind of move on to Phase 2 and see Stan's overall thoughts about people writing hate into Marvel, and that should kind of give us a better view of how people felt about it. In May of 1967, the first of Stan's Soapboxes was published. And in these, he would say, in this first soapbox, he would say that Marvel's purpose is to publish stories that everyone can enjoy. Basically, if the writers enjoyed it, then everybody should. Which, for most of Marvel, I still believe that is true. Except for the current Spider-Man run, because, honestly, I think Marvel just doesn't know what to do with Spider-Man at the moment. But this isn't about that. This is about Stan Lee and Marvel squashing racism, bigotry, and hatred. Although down the line in September of 1968, it was the first soapbox where Stan stated that Marvel is truly for everybody. And this was a response to people asking what the writer's views on the issues of the world were. And this is what Stan said. He said, "We would like to go on record about one vital issue. But we believe that man has a divine destiny and awesome responsibility. The responsibility of treating those who share this wondrous world with ours with respect. Judging each fellow human on his own merit, regardless of race, creed, or color. That we agree on, and will never rest until it becomes a fact, rather than just a cherished dream." In the 1970 soapbox, there was talked about something that honestly still comes up today, and it's should comics be escapism? Because, there's so much going on in the world. Is this really what we want to see in our media, especially comics, the MCU, all that? And someone had asked about that back in the 70s. And this is what Stan had to say about that. He said, "It seems to me that a story without a message, however subliminal, is like a man without a soul. None of us lives in a vacuum. None of us is untouched by the everyday events about us. Events which shape our stories, just as they have shaped our lives. Sure, our tales can be called escapist, but just because something's for fun doesn't mean we have to blanket our brains while we read it." Which I think is truly saying, yeah, you're reading this to escape, but don't forget, we have to have a message, and we use the real world for inspiration. After about 10 years of doing soapboxes, Stan was finally asked about bigotry. And this is what he said. He said, "Bigotry comes in many forms and shapes, but it's most easily recognized in the form of cruel and mindless generalizations, such as, the Mexicans are taking our jobs, the Chinese are going to try to take over the government," just any kind of hate that is about a specific group. And Stan ended this soapbox by saying, "You may dislike someone. Be my guest. It's a free country. But do it because he or she has personally given you a reason to feel that way. Not because of skin color, or religion, or foreign ancestry, or any other moronic, mixed-up, mindless motive. Because if you justify your hatred by smearing everyone in any group with the same brush, you're a bigot." In another one, which is going to be the last soapbox that we kind of highlight, is Stan was kind of asked about evil men and their place in the world. And Stan said, "For many years, we've been trying, in our own bumbling way, to illustrate that love is a far greater force, a far greater power than hate. Now, we don't mean you're expected to go around like a pirouetting Pollyanna, tossing posies at everyone who passes by," which that definitely has to be some wording of the times, because, Jesus. But he said, "Let's consider 3 men, Buddha, Christ, and Moses, men of peace, whose thoughts and deeds have influenced countless millions throughout the ages, and whose presence still is felt in every corner of the earth. Buddha, Christ, and Moses, men of goodwill, men of tolerance, and especially men of love. Now consider the practitioners of hate who have sullied the pages of history, who still venerate their words. Where is homage still paid to their memory? What banners still are raised to their cause? The power of love and the power of hate, which is most truly enduring. When you tend to despair, let the answer sustain you." Which I think these are powerful words coming from a man who was overseas during World War II and did see what men of hate can truly do. And with these messages from Stan, what I'm trying to highlight is, with everything going on in the world right now, going on with comics and the MCU, because I am a fan of a lot of Marvel stuff. I follow a lot of pages on social media. And it's just so disheartening to see so much hate talked about these characters that have been around for so long just because they are different race, different gender, what have it. And just know that Stan would not want that. He believed comics were for everybody and about everybody. Hell, he's the one who made She-Hulk. Granted, it was because he didn't want, Marvel didn't want a competitor making a She-Hulk, but still, he made She-Hulk. He helped pioneer Black Panther, Luke Cage. Yes, he didn't necessarily create them, but he was the one who helped approve those because he was editor. Comics have always been about sending a message and standing up for what's right. Hell, the very first Captain America comic is Captain America punching Hitler in the face. And comics are going to stay that way. They're going to stay sending a message and standing up for what's right. And with that, we're going to leave phase 2 and go over the top 5 things we learned today and talk about just a little more about what this whole episode means. Number 1, Black Panther was the first black superhero to grace the pages of comics, and people respond positively, or it seems like it was, because it was the 70s and the info has kind of been lost to time. Number 2, people didn't really write into Marvel about Luke Cage, or he was never really mentioned in bullpen letters. Number 3, the Luke Cage TV show was received relatively well. The main complaints were people thought it was slow and boring, but most people enjoyed the show and wanted a third season. Number 4, Stan Lee had a column called Stan's Soapbox, where he would address issues that people would write in about. And number 5, if Stan Lee were still around today, he would still be pioneering the industry and creating new characters that were breaking barriers. And I'm going to kind of reiterate what I've already said, but today, it seems with social media, everyone and anyone can spit vitriol hate about comics and movies, and they can say that that is not what Marvel is about, or Marvel's gone woke, or whatever trigger words they want to use. But Marvel has always been about innovation and inclusivity. This episode was always supposed to have this spirit, and it was supposed to focus more on the first 2 black heroes in Marvel, but with the sparse information, I want to just highlight more of Marvel has always been accepting. And I hope this has been a good insight into Marvel and what they truly stand for. In the next episode, we will be doing a character highlight into Daredevil, as his new series should be coming out around the time of that episode coming out. This episode was written, recorded, and edited by myself, James Bazinski. Intro music, timeline or phase music, and outro music were sourced from freesound.org. You can find us on Instagram at TMPFGL, YouTube at The Marvel Podcast for Gifted Listeners, TikTok at TMPFGL, and if you want to send any feedback, questions, or suggestions, they can be emailed to tmpfgl@gmail.com. Please like, subscribe, and rate the show wherever you listen. Until next time, gifted listeners, thank you for listening, and Excelsior!